Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Christopher, aka the Bronze Age Nerd, and we are live here on Panels Without Borders. I have an exciting guest tonight that we'll get to in just 1 minute, but I did have a couple housekeeping notes I wanted to go over with everybody real fast as we let people kind of trickle into the chat here and watch the stream. First up, it is the end of the month, which means I'm going to do another channel member watch along for a comic book related movie that I haven't seen before. And it looks like the poll winner this month was the Fantastic Four Roger Corman film from 1990. So I'll be watching that. I've never seen it before. I've seen snippets here and there, but I'll be doing that live over on my Discord. I think we're going to do that tomorrow night around 8 p.m. Pacific time. So make sure you're a channel member if you want to participate in that to get the invite link to go check that out. Also, at the end of the show, we're going to do our monthly giveaway for channel memberships. So if you want to win some free comics, I got a stack of DC comic books sitting over here. Definitely consider becoming a channel member if you're interested in winning those comic books. So we got some people trickling into the chat here, but I want to bring in our guest, which is a very special person that I'm super excited to have. Somebody who was an inspiration for why I started this YouTube channel in the first place, with some exciting news that I can't wait to talk about with them. So we're going to welcome in Chris from ComicTropes.
Hello, chat. Hello, Christopher. How are you?
Fantastic. Fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. That's very kind of you.
Oh, absolutely. I was really excited when I saw the announcement. I follow the Dynamite stuff pretty closely and all the Indiegogos they do with content creators they've done over time. And I was super excited to see yours pop up. So I thought this was a cool opportunity.
It's a pretty awesome opportunity. Nick and his team at Dynamite have been very kind to me. You know, mostly I just do, of course, like you, the YouTube thing, but I do love to draw, and they gave me an awesome opportunity here to draw a cover. So thanks for letting me plug it and for just hanging out, talking comics. I love it.
Awesome. Well, you know, and some of my viewers may not be familiar with ComicTropes. I did have there's a link in the description down below if you want to go check out ComicTropes. For me, if you're a comic book lover, it's a must subscribe channel. So definitely go check him out. I think you're going to love it. He just dropped a Barry Windsor Smith video. He does great kind of retrospectives on creators is sort of the best content he does that I absolutely love. So I highly recommend it. And that brings me to a question. I want to get our audience a little bit of a chance to get to know you a little bit. So I have to ask, you know, for that YouTuber origin story, what started you down the path of making comic book related YouTube videos?
Thanks for asking. Sure. Nothing like super happy, but I'm glad I started it. Basically, I had moved across the country 9 years ago to Washington State. We live in the same state for people that don't know. And I had a great job, huge company though, and they downsized the department after a few years. And I found myself like, oh, it's going to take a little while probably for me to find my next job because I didn't have like people to easily network with in a new state. I'm old. I'm so old. And so I was like, I like to be busy. That's just who I am. I like to work. I like to be busy. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just talk about something that I love? I'll start a YouTube channel. Doesn't really even need to be successful. It just needs to be a project, something that I can be passionate about. I've always like my favorite artistic medium, my favorite storytelling medium. I love comics. All sorts of useless like trivia that stays up here. I'm sure you're the same way. I'm sure a lot of us are. And I was like, this will be a place that I can use it. So that's what it was. It was just like initially a project to keep busy.
Right on. I mean, and I can definitely relate to that. For those, I think a lot of people in chat that are viewers of my show actually already know this, but I often cite that your channel is one of the channels that I discovered when I was thinking about, you know, kind of expanding into doing a YouTube channel. For some of the same reasons. I was employed, but I knew I was going to be laid off soon. And it was during kind of the beginning of the COVID lockdown. I wanted a social outreach. And your channel, and ironically enough, another channel that you're affiliated with, at least friends with, Hooded Cobra Commander 788, who does G.I. Joe reviews, were two of the channels that I watched. And it's kind of hilarious to know that behind the scenes, you guys are friends.
Yeah, well, and you know what? Like we met because we each had a YouTube channel, and Brian or Hooded Cobra Commander 788 has been doing it a little bit longer than me. I had a giveaway early on. I'd done an episode about a G.I. Joe comic. I honestly don't even remember what the topic was, but I know that like there was a gimmick in it where I did some stop motion with some G.I. Joe figures, and then I was like, well, I don't collect these. I'm going to give them away. And Brian won. And we just started talking because we had a lot of similar interests. And now it's probably been maybe 5 years that we've known each other. And we like talk a lot. He's a great guy. If you're into G.I. Joe, Hooded Cobra Commander 788, definitely I agree. Has a great channel. He knows his stuff. He's a fun, passionate guy.
Yeah, and just he puts a lot of energy into the channel, and it really shows. You see a lot of he puts like kind of a zany, quirky spin on it, which is really fun. I mean, you're somebody who does that as well, and I think that's a great, we can kind of latch on to that as the viewer. So that's really awesome. Now, when we're talking about the origin of ComicTropes, I can see where the idea started. How about the focus for the channel? Like, what made you decide to primarily focus on creators? And that's not all you do, of course, but what made you focus on the creators more than, say, the comics themselves? And I think that's really awesome, by the way. But what made you focus on that?
That's kind of you to ask any of this stuff. It's flattering to talk about it. Everybody likes to talk about themselves. I guess that is an interesting question. When I first started the channel, I wasn't 100% sure about the direction. If you watch the early episodes, yes, I talk about creator techniques, but it's also very gimmicky. I'm trying to like see how many times I come across I called them tropes, or, like they're repeated techniques. That's what it started as. And then over time I was like, let's not chain myself here. I don't know. I guess that's just the part that's most interesting to me to talk about. I didn't have a whole lot of interest in just recapping a story. That's very popular on YouTube. And so I'm not really throwing shade, but it would burn me out to just recap stuff. I really wanted to just sort of do essays and do commentary. And there's so much in comics that I love that I try to focus on mostly the things that I'm excited about or that I think is cool or different or unique. And mostly that's techniques by writers and artists and colorists. Sometimes it's about a piece of comic book history too, just because I'm like, this is just too good a story to share. And I've lost my thread, but that's what interests me, is more doing like an essay about that kind of stuff. That's what interests me.
Gotcha. And so the question that, as you talk about all these fantastic creators and the people that gave us these amazing stories that we all love, and the reason we're all here in this space right now, what, as a kid growing up, who was the first artist? Because I know that you yourself are an artist, of course. What was the first artist that you really took note of? Like, wow, I got to see more of this person's stuff.
That's a great question. There were comics that I read before, but if I'm being honest, probably the first artist that I started recognizing easily, it was probably Todd McFarlane, although I think you could make a small argument for Mike Zeck as well, because I read Craven's Last Hunt. That was an early series that I read that I really noticed, oh, there's something kind of special that's capturing my attention about this. But I guess Mike Zeck wasn't necessarily as prolific. So while I noticed it in that moment, I wasn't able to keep finding Mike Zeck stuff.
Right.
Oh, thanks, Fernando.
Yeah. That's nice.
So yeah, I think it was probably Todd McFarlane, somewhere around, maybe, I'm just going to guess, but 88 or something like that.
Okay.
Early McFarlane.
So were you drawn to the line work, kind of like that kind of detailed style he did? It's a little...
I don't think that there's any denying that he is very popular and has continued to be popular because he's got a very recognizable style. As I've continued to really invest my time in reading comics, I've come to appreciate slightly different art that might not be as detailed, but can have really good storytelling. That's the kind of stuff, a storyteller like an Alex Toth or a David Mazzucchelli kind of excites me more as I got older. But if I'm being honest, there's a reason Image was so huge. It's guys my age were oh, I recognize McFarlane and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri, Eric Larson. We saw that and we were I know who that artist is. And it was exciting. It was exciting. and some of those artists have evolved and some haven't. but it was definitely fun, and yeah, it was fun.
Right on, right on. Well, that's a great answer. Yeah, Todd McFarlane. I think for a lot of people in our age bracket, probably would be him, or for me, it was Jim Lee. I remember that's the first artist I remember like
I
just
was just
tracking on
about
his
to
X-Men
ask,
run.
like, like I wanted to flip it. Like, who were some of
Yeah,
the first artists you noticed? Unless you've already talked about this a million times.
I actually don't think I have, because it's just something that with your focus on creators, especially on art, it just made me curious. But yeah, Jim Lee was for sure. I'm a big X-Men fan, so following along on his X-Men run, you just kind of notice the shift and change in art. It blows you away when you're reading. And then
Yeah.
honestly, probably J. Scott Campbell, just because I was reading a lot of that Image stuff, reading Gen 13, and his style. I was used to more of the Todd McFarlane, the Jim Lee, and then he kind of went to this, kind of interesting style that I don't really even know how to describe it, but just a little bit more curvy, a little bit more simplistic in some ways, and kind of
Well,
cool on its
I
own way.
think
So
it's
it opened me
I
up.
think it's fair to say that like he was one of the early guys to have some influences from manga or possibly anime, but probably manga. And
Yeah.
you read comics more and you start going like, oh well, wait a minute, Art Adams definitely got there first, and like
Yeah.
J. Scott Campbell was probably or Todd McFarlane was probably influenced by a guy like Michael Golden.
Right.
Everybody's influenced by somebody, but I think for yeah, people of a certain age, you're introduced to something initially, and J. Scott Campbell, like in his first few years, did evolve and get a lot better, and he's kind of locked in his style from time now, but it was interesting to see him evolve in his first few years. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of brings me to the point. I mentioned it, I teased it a couple times here, which I have a feeling that even amongst some of your viewers, there are probably some people that didn't realize that you have had previous experience doing comic book art yourself. So I was wondering if you could
A
kind of
little.
tell us a little bit about your experience with that, because it's pretty interesting, really.
Oh, a lot of it, just to be clear, is more in the self-published realm, and I had a lot of great experiences in like the. I'm trying to like get the timeline right, but it was like the early 2000s. I had moved to DC for work, and I happened to meet up and help form a group of comic book artists and writers. We met every month at this great bar where you could like move couches and stuff around, and we would just like all draw together, and we did like a lot of self-published big like thick anthologies and newspapers that we'd give out around town, and then like from there like got a few opportunities to do stuff like more like educational comics, I guess you'd call them. So
Hmm.
I've been able to draw a few comics that like I was an artist in an anthology that was all written by actual Native Americans about their version of a trickster legend. And that's a little like over 10 years now, but it was nominated for an Eisner. So that's a little feather in my cap. I'm not a
Absolutely.
professional working artist, but I'm proud of what I've accomplished.
Real quick, Ferd Bird, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And happy Tuesday to you as well. Greg Capullo, there's another good one. I'm kind of highlighting some of the artists that people are talking about in chat here, and it's Art Adams, Capullo. We've had John Byrne, of course, George Perez, rest in peace, one of the greats, Bagley, quite a few in there. So definitely a lot of people that are worth the mention.
Yeah.
Also worth mentioning, a big part of the reason that brings us here tonight is something you have going on, which we talked about earlier a little bit, is your Indiegogo campaign that you have that's been wildly
Yeah.
successful already. It's already like what, 500% funded?
I think so. I'm not checking on it every day because I'm one of those people that like the numbers make me nervous. All I know
I
is that I'm
gotcha.
trying to hustle. So any invitations I'm getting, I'm accepting because yeah, I want this to be as successful as possible. Dynamite gave me a great opportunity. I drew a cover for Vampirella where I tried to throw in every sort of cliche that you could find on a comic book cover. I tried to make a fun cover. Dynamite's running the campaign and fulfilling it and stuff, but I'm definitely the guy that needs to promote it. That becomes the artist or the writer's job these days in comics. So doing shows like yours when I'm invited, trying to get the word out on social media, which is a huge challenge that I could go on and on about. And I'll be doing a live stream myself on my channel on Thursday and giving away stuff that Dynamite gave me, like these Vampirella statues and stuff. So got
are
a
awesome.
ton of them
That's
to give away.
Art Germ statue up there, it looks like.
That is Art Germ. Yep.
Nice.
And then this one's based on a pretty famous Jose Gonzalez cover. So they gave me some pretty nice statues to just give away. But we're going to do a live stream and just talk about Vampirella and my art and just have a fun time chatting.
Oh, right on, right on. And
look at
by
that.
the way, real fast, thanks for the super chat, Comic Journey. I do appreciate that. And yeah, you guys keep watching. I'll definitely keep bringing guests on. It's absolutely my favorite thing to do is talk to other people in the community. I like talking to other content creators. I like talking to comic book creators. And today we're talking to one who happens to be both. So that's awesome.
I appreciate it.
And I do want to share. I have the page loaded up here. I'll show everybody what the cover looks like. We're kind of talking about it a little bit. May as well show you what we're actually looking at here. Get to there's the kind of the breakdown of the different covers that are available. And I did mine earlier. By the way, I went with the Virgin because I figured that space up there would be a great spot to have you sign it someday, maybe.
I'd love to.
So, and yeah, the remark. The remark is that's a great place for that too. That's awesome.
I know you're in this state, and you don't need to give away like exactly where you live or anything. But do you have a regular comic shop in the area that you go to?
That's actually one of those funny things. So I'm in Southwest Washington. I'll just say that much. My closest shop that I go to is I Like Comics in Vancouver. Great shop down there.
That's what it's called? Comics in Vancouver?
I Like Comics.
Oh, I Like Comics. Oh, yeah. I've been to I Like Comics.
Yeah, it's a great shop.
It is a great shop. Yeah, that's a fantastic shop. I went there once just on a day trip down to Portland, which has a ton of amazing comic book shops too, by the way. That city has tons of shops. And at I Like Comics, I found a great copy of the Spider-Man Superman crossover book that Marvel DC did at a good price. Yeah, that's a really nice store.
Yeah, he does a really good job bringing in lots of new stuff to look at, which, you know, as comic collectors, that's always the, you know, seeing the new stock, seeing what came in from collections. That's always the fun part, right? Like trying to find some nostalgia in there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, that's an awesome shop. But yeah, I do go up to the kind of greater Seattle area every once in a while. Definitely be doing that this spring, summer. I had planned on going to Emerald City, but I probably can't make it just based on some scheduling stuff, which is too bad. But I'll be at Washington Summer Con for sure. You know, other stuff like that.
Isn't that one growing like in a really nice way? I feel like you know, they need maybe a catchier name or something. But the Washington Summer Con in Puyallup is a blast. They really do a good job.
100%. I think it was kind of maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was the first big con to come back after COVID, which I think helped it. It was kind of one of the first ones anyway. So in the area, and we don't have a lot here, so it is nice whenever you have another one to add to the list.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now that we do have the cover up on the screen, you know, obviously some of the cliches you were talking about are pretty obvious. Doing an homage cover, for example.
Yes.
Do you want to maybe kind of, you know, give away some of the inspirations that you went with besides that?
Aside from like the homage to John Byrne's famous X-Men cover that George Perez later homaged for Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I think more people do remember the Crisis version, but just to be clear, John Byrne was first, and I acknowledge that. And if you look at the cover, folks, I do say after. I credit them. This is an intentional homage. I call that out on the cover. But aside from that, just death, sexy ladies, guest stars, you know, just cover text, and of course the big one, gorillas. I made an episode about that. Like for some reason, especially DC Comics in like the 50s and 60s, they were convinced that if you put a gorilla on a cover that it sold. I don't know if that still holds true. Let's see.
All right, so chat is yelling at me, especially one person, and this is kind of a funny story because I made the mistake once on stream of calling Crisis 7 the original version of this cover. I was quickly corrected about about the John Byrne cover, of course, and the X-Men run, which makes sense to me. I don't know why I didn't realize that came first, but I'll be remiss if I don't point out that a lot of people point out there are a lot of earlier versions, and actually there's a Namor cover that comes to mind, but there's quite a few versions of that cover. It's a surprisingly popular style of cover. There's a Batman cover like that where he's holding Robin. There's a bunch really that came first.
Yeah, the idea in general of holding it that way, I need to look again at the Namor. Like the idea of the pose with like holding a dead body is the same, but just to be clear, like Perez definitely like has almost the same sort of body layout for Supergirl as Jean Grey.
Yeah.
And I'd have to like look closely to see if like the line art is quite the same. But yeah, that's fair. There's a long history there. And that's part of why I did this as a pose. I'm trying to be as cliche as possible, but hopefully it's some fun. Hopefully it's fun.
Well, and I love that the play on the theme, because I mean you're and especially with how the channel started and with the comic tropes idea, like you're definitely tying into that. I think that's great. I just think that's a fun piece of history because I got schooled on it at one point. Had to point it out. Otherwise, I would never not hear about it from my audience.
I try to be very humble about any level of supposed expertise I have on comics, because I just know that as soon as you say something definitively, there is going to be somebody that says, well, actually, and they might be very nice about it, but I understand. There's a lot of history to comics. It's hard to know it all.
And I that's one of the tenets that I try to live by is I like to, very much put myself out there as I'm always willing to be corrected, because I love to talk about this stuff, but by no means am I a historian of comic books either. So it's and there's all of the experts that come out, that have their particular niche that they're into, and they know a lot. So always
Eddie's
love
mullet is pointing out Submariner 13, so I'm looking at it. Oh yeah, that is super similar. Yeah. I've seen that one before. You're right.
Yeah,
that is super similar. It's not quite the exact like line for line, but you're right. That is definitely what John Byrne was homaging. So there's history to it. There's history to it.
I do think that those two for sure, the X-Men cover, the Byrne cover, and Crisis are by far the two most famous that I think most people are going to stick to. So
that's what I was referring to, but it's awesome that there's even more history. That just makes it mean even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said you weren't looking at the numbers, but you can plug your ears for a second if you need to. But folks, we're already at 621% of the goal, which originally was $1,000. We're at 6,218 right now. Like I said, I did back this earlier. By all means, check it out. There are some cool options, and by the way, very affordable too. Like I've been looking at a lot of exclusive comic books and special variant covers that get made, and I mean really $15 for either the A cover or the black and white or the Virgin, and a bundle deal for all three. That's a really good deal.
Yeah, keep in mind, like, no matter how successful this is, it is going to be printed in much smaller quantities than like sort of what we typically see in your average comic book shop. Like, so there isn't quite the economy of scale to get these down to like regular cover price. It's something special, ideally. Hopefully, it's fun. I think that Dynamite's done a pretty good job with pricing this. I hope that people think that it's fair and fun. Yes, good. I love to see that it, has passed its goal. We artificially set, just to be clear, a very low goal just to be sure that it goes forward. I'm hesitant to like really sort of announce the number that I put in my head that I wanted to hit. It is higher, but we've got like 3 weeks, so hopefully I can sort of hit the goal that I've got in my head. I'm just saying every sale does matter to me. It helps me gauge interest in what people might have for me to put out there.
For sure. And again, we do have links in the description. There's a pinned comment in chat. If you guys do want to go check this out, bookmark it for later. All those ones, check out ComicTropes stream on Thursday, where he's going to be talking about it a little bit more and running some giveaways. Definitely some good ways to check it out here. While we're talking about this, I know that you were working with Dynamite on this. Was this? Can you talk a little bit about how this kind of got started? This particular ball got rolling.
Sure. You know what? The biggest thing was, if we go back to the beginning of the pandemic, before the vaccine was available, I got COVID and I got really bad sick. I was in the hospital for over a week. It was bad. Skip past that. I'm recovering, and I was doing a couple live streams from time to time. And Nick Barucci, I guess, the president of Dynamite, I guess had watched a bunch of my shows, so he tuned into the live stream and he gave me some very generous super chat donations and some kind words of support. It meant a lot to me at the time because, just to be clear, like, I had insurance, but the bills that you accumulate in America being in the hospital for a week are bonkers. Yeah. Just bonkers. Technically, I'm still paying it off. It meant a lot to me. He was very, very kind to me in that regard. Just said that he liked my show, and he just occasionally would literally reach out and say like, "Hey, how are you doing? How's the recovery going?" and stuff. It was very kind of him. And from there, he just, was like, "You know what? Let's see what we could do together. You're doing Talk Up Comics, and you've got like an audience that cares about comics. Let's see what would happen if we did something together." He's been very kind in that regard. I really appreciate it. It's very nice of him.
Well, and yeah, Nick is a friend of this channel as well. And, I see him all over the community when I jump on live streams. He's out there. He's talking about supporting shops that are in trouble. He's helping Fat Jack's Comics right now as a campaign that he's really spearheading. Does a lot of auctions where, the proceeds help go to keep them operating. Which is an important piece of American history for comic books, and just an obvious, clear booster for the community. So it's really awesome to see that.
Exactly. I appreciate the opportunity a lot. I hope I've made that clear to Nick. I'll just say that to everybody else here, and it's a great opportunity. And I'll be honest, I feel the pressure though, because there's not tons of comic book channels on YouTube or any social media that have had this kind of opportunity. I want it to be a success so that, like, theoretically, other comic book publishers might reach out to other reviewers and stuff and see like what kind of opportunities there were. So I don't know. I'm artificially putting that pressure on myself that I want this to be a success so that maybe other people might get similar types of opportunities, because it's just for fun. Like this is I didn't write the whole thing. It's just the cover. But it was a really, really fun project, and I hope other people can get an opportunity like that out of this.
That's really awesome.
We'll see.
Yeah, and I hope so too, because just anytime they've done a few of these creator, content creator style covers in the past, and it's just really fun to see people, the fans of those channels really rally behind it too, because they love seeing, somebody that they support get a chance like that, an opportunity. So it's something that's just really awesome, and I hope it gets to continue because it's a lot of fun.
I just want to mention I'm seeing the chat, and Figure Drawing mentioned that like his mother. Yeah, that's the one I just noticed, and respect and sympathy. Sorry that your family had to go through that. Let's just I won't try to one up you or anything like that. It's not a competition. It's just that like going to the hospital, even when you've got full coverage, can end up being ridiculously expensive. It's legit scary. I'm sure a lot of people avoid going to the hospital because they're scared of stuff like that. And that's not right. That's not right. Hopefully. But you know what? That's obviously not comics related. It's just, we're all dealing with that. And I feel sympathy for everybody. And, hopefully we can take care of each other and get stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Nick does reach out and support a lot of people. This banner is kind of preventing that from looking nice when I highlight long comments. Oh, I guess I thought it was going to raise everybody up, but I guess not. Just going to block our faces.
I'm just having fun.
Guys, I think it's a great cover. If you think this kind of thing is cool and you want to see more of it, I highly encourage you to check it out and see if it's something that you're interested in.
That's nice of you.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I hope so. I hope so, folks. Let's see what happens. I'll just let you know, I would sincerely appreciate your consideration. And if you're in the Pacific Northwest or anything, and we can see each other at like a comic convention, or if I go to a big one like New York Comic Con, I'll just let you know. I'm 1,000% happy to sign something. If I've got like, a good pen, maybe a small remark or something, anything I can do, I appreciate it. Let's see. Come to Canada. You are welcome here. Not too far. It's not easy to move to another country. You have to have a job or be rich. You have to have or marry someone there. It's not easy though. It's not very easy.
So I guess the other question I had about this, that kind of, this, we've seen you work in the past, obviously, on comics. We're seeing this cover. Are you looking to do more work? Is there going to be more stuff coming out, like covers or a comic maybe in the future?
So nothing that's like about to launch or anything.
Okay.
But yes. I want to like give it away, but I shouldn't because it isn't done yet.
Fair.
There's a popular Image comic that's offered me the opportunity to write and draw a backup page for their story, and I want to take advantage of that.
Ooh. And
I've got, of course, my own ideas. I think all of us have our own ideas, and I'll be honest, the biggest trick for me is carving out the time. I still have a part-time job, and that means still 30 hours a week. So I've got that, and then I'm trying to do like the ComicTropes. It legit, like, I've had to cut out so many things that I used to do for fun. Like I don't play video games, I don't go out a whole lot. I try to carve out some time for my wife, but I don't go out a lot. A little bit.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. Or you'll go insane. Yep.
But like, where do I carve out that time to rewrite some of my stories? I would really like to write more than, like, I love drawing. I have more confidence in my writing skills than my art skills. I draw for fun. I write, and I think I've got like some good ideas. I don't know. I've got one that's really close that probably just needs one rewrite, and I won't give away everything about it. I'll just say that I love horror. I don't feel like there's a lot of good werewolf stories out there. There's only like 2 or 3 really good ones. I think I've got a really cool idea for one. It hasn't been done, so I'd love to do that. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Well, my gears start turning here because I know somebody that you've worked with in the past that you enjoy that did a great werewolf story too. So, in Robert,
are you talking about what?
Robert Kirkman and Astounding Wolfman.
Astounding Wolfman?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
Robert's had a great career. Robert, he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish him all the success with future seasons of Invincible and all that. It's great. So,
what's nice about like something like Invincible is Robert brought both Cory Walker and Ryan Ottley on board for things like character design and stuff like that, and also Nate Bellegarde, who drew stuff like Brit and Adam Eve and stuff like that. Like Nate designs a lot of the background characters, so you don't always hear about them, but like I'm really glad to know that the people that made the comics are also having a big hand in shaping that animated series. That makes me happy.
That's great. That's awesome.
And Cory and Nate both went to animation school. Like originally they were both people that were studying to become animators and sort of found their way into comics for a while, and now we're sort of back in animation where they were originally going. It's an interesting story for each of them.
Oh, that's cool. I like hearing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Werewolves are. This is coming from actual Dracula, so I think that's pretty funny. Werewolves are just dogs on 2 legs.
I think he's biased. I think he's biased. This is. I won't tolerate vampire on werewolf hate. I will not tolerate that at all. But I will take that as the title. The title of my book will be "It's Just Dogs on 2 Legs."
It's a great title. All right, so it looks like you got another backer there, backer number 137. So there we go. That's awesome.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely biased. Okay, folks. So I do want to move into a special segment I had planned. for tonight. So give me 1 second to load up my slideshow here. And we are going to do something that I think is something that's a topic that's been on people's minds a lot. When I hear collectors talking about exclusives and some questions about, when there's an A cover and there's variant covers and an exclusive, like which one you're into, what you might be more drawn to. When it comes to investors and speculators, there's some questions about, hey, which one's going to be the best long term, that kind of stuff. And so I had kind of a fun little game, and this is a chat participation as well as Chris and I. Yeah, it's an interactive activity.
Brilliant.
So, I love it. All right, so let me see here. Share that. And here we go. So I call this segment Cover Wars. No copyright infringements whatsoever here. This is all above board. So
I don't know why
basically,
you even mentioned it, but sure. Yeah. I don't know why you even mentioned it.
No. I mean, it's clearly, just all stars and good fun and no other mention of wars. Yeah, Spaceballs, exactly. So what we're going to see here is a series of slides. Each slide has 2 covers on it, A and B. And when you see a cover, when you see them come up, let me know which one you're more interested in, chat. And your criteria can be your criteria, whether or not you think it's just a better cover, whether or not you think one has better, speculation value. I know that's a big concern for a lot of collectors. Just whichever one you're more drawn to. It could be the original cover versus the redo of the cover, that kind of a thing. So let's get started with our first one, which is, this is a little interesting. So on the left, of course, letter A here, we have Chris's cover for Vampirella, which is Vampirella Year 1, number 6. Fantastic homage cover. And on the right, we have kind of the other big cover I could think of from a content creator that did a Vampirella cover. This is Vampirella 16, and that was Gem Mint Collectibles exclusive, but it was done by Ken Hauser, did the art for that one. So let's see what chat says here for which cover wins. I have my pick, but I'll wait till we get some votes in before I reveal it.
I know. I'm not gonna win. I'm not gonna win.
Oh boy, we've got the votes rolling in here.
You guys, that's nice.
Easy cover A, easy. So we started off with an easy one, which I agree. I actually do like. Gem Mint has the Gem logo. I backed this cover back in the day when it came out. It's smart. I liked it. I like Ken Hauser's art. I do have to agree, though. I think that the new cover from Chris is hands down an easy win here.
Well, let me then. I'll just say this. My buddy Mark Englert colored it, and he helped make me look even better. I mean, obviously, you guys can see the black and white version if you're curious, but I'm very happy with the colors there. Mark Englert's incredible.
No, he did awesome work. Yeah, it definitely pops for sure. Okay, so that was an easy one.
Thank you.
Yeah. So see, there you go. Even more reason to go check out the Indiegogo campaign live now on Indiegogo. All right, let's move on to a little bit harder one. And this is the one that kind of inspired this particular little game here. And there's been a lot of love for Power Girl recently, with a lot of Action Comics 1051 Power Girl covers. And now we have the Power Girl special coming out with some covers. So on the left here, you have Art Germ's cover for Power Girl Special number 1. And that's a cover that a lot of people really love. And on the right, you have Will Jack's cover for Action Comics 1053, which I believe is already sold out from where it launched. It was a very popular cover. So let's see here. We got some votes coming in already. We got some actual Draculas going straight for B.
I've got a vote.
Okay, well, what's your vote, Chris?
I don't want to skew people.
I think it's B by a landslide so far.
It is, and that's interesting. I'm going to make the case for A in this particular case.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, guys. I think B looks beautiful. I really do. That looks like a very realistic face compared to the more stylized version. I find some of the decisions on how the costume is sort of worn and the wrinkles and stuff a little more believable, and I just like the layout slightly more on A. I see some decisions that sort of bring the eye in a circle. So just like in terms of composition and a few details, I would go with A, but they're both great covers. Those are both great covers. That's fun. That's very fun.
Yeah. And you know, it's actually getting some love here. I think B, by my quick dirty math here, looks like B is still the winner, but A is getting some love. The thing I will say here is, for me, these covers are interesting because I do love a good art germ cover. I kind of agree a little bit with this comment. I wouldn't quite go that far, but I do agree that there is a lot of similar art germ covers that get released. But that actually is the funny thing about Wheeljack too, because Wheeljack has a lot of covers that are kind of in this similar style as well.
It's a challenge for every artist. It absolutely is. It absolutely is a challenge for every artist. Like, they come up with their style, and they have the same sort of ideas, and it's a challenge to evolve.
And I will say that I did see earlier today I believe the finished pencils, and I think it was marker on top of pencils, I want to say, of B before it was digitally touched up. And I do think that I wish I had saved that image. I didn't save the image off. I think you could see it, I believe, on his IG, on Wheeljack's IG, but it's worth checking out because I kind of prefer that version to the final version you see here that does kind of look a little digitized, maybe, for my likings. But
I mean, it's that background. The background just does look a little sort of either digital or like as compared to sort of like painted or drawn or something.
Yeah.
But I will say this, for a lot, I think B probably won your poll, Bronze Age nerd, if that is your real name. But the colors absolutely pop on B. The colors absolutely pop. Probably the art germ cover could have theoretically pushed that contrast. I do like the saturated look because they're both up in the sky, like, and it seems to be daytime. Well, like, it makes sense that the sun would be like, like really bringing out the color.
Yeah. The yellow kind of filter, almost, in a way. I mean, not a filter because it's the sun, but yeah. It's blue. A is a little kind of that blue tint to it. It's a little cooler color composition, but I think both are great. I think B just speaks to me more like initial snap reaction. But I think both are awesome. B would probably get my vote. I'd probably have to go with the chat on this one, but both great covers. And this was a tough one for me. I thought that was a good pairing. B does, that's a good point, Comic Journey. B does look a little young. I could understand that because she's kind of more of approaching probably a Supergirl age rather than a Power Girl age. That's a good point, worth pointing out. I'm glad you brought that up. So I don't want to do too much on Power Girl, but there was another cover recently that people were gaga over, and I think it's the perfect follow-up for this one. And that is the Warren Liu Showdown here. You have the original Power Girl 27 on the left, which is it's his first cover that he ever did. It's a very popular image of Power Girl. And then he recently did this version on the right for Action Comics 1051, and that was an instant sellout everywhere. I know people are really, still hot on that book. It's still doing very well. And this is an interesting case to me. Like, I don't want to reveal my bias here, so I'll let chat start getting their votes in. It's already split from the first,
but I've got a clear favorite.
Yeah. Power Girl can't lose. Yeah, I know Preston's a fan of Power Girl, as am I. I think she's a cool character. I really liked Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti's run on Power Girl.
Absolutely,
they did a fantastic job. So
underrated creative team. They do some great stuff 100%. Together. I think that they really redefined Harley Quinn in the way that we all sort of recognize her today.
Oh, absolutely. And one of my favorite questions, I was lucky enough to get a chance to ask them a quick question on a live stream. And I said, if you could work on one Marvel book as a team, what book would it be? And their answer was awesome. And it was She-Hulk. And that would be quite a run, I think. So I'd be excited to see that.
They've got a good sense of humor. That's a good idea.
All right, another B. We're split so far. Maybe a narrow edge for A coming in here.
I think so.
Good point, Comic Tree. You're not wrong about that. A close.
Was it
but
Wally
B.
Wood that kept drawing her boobs bigger and bigger originally, and just to see like when an editor would tell him to stop?
I believe that's how the legend goes for the kind of the origin of the ever growing boob window.
Pretty sure it was Wally Wood.
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know
Took
if
the
that's
joke. I was like waiting to tell.
yeah, right.
That's for you, Terry.
D or D, which one? No. So I at this point, it's close here. Yeah, thank you, Wallywood. I'm a fan of the original. I love cover
Same.
A. And it's mostly because I read that run, right? Like I read that run month to month. I was pulling it at Things from Another World down in Portland at their Beaverton location. And that was kind of the culmination of that run. And even though Amanda and Jimmy weren't on that run, I kept reading it. And I'm happy I still have the book. I sold off my collection a few years ago, the vast majority of it. And that was one of the runs I kept, was that run. And I'm glad I did, because I just over time have fallen more and more in love with that cover, that rendition. It's cool that it's Warren Liu's first cover, who's obviously a very successful artist now. So that's my vote. What was your vote, Chris?
Absolutely A.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, and it's really only by comparing them that, like, because if you saw B, it's good. But
yeah,
A has stronger composition. I like the slightly more harsh highlight on the face. I think that like is a little more dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
In B, she's just sort of there, but in A, I do feel like that there's some sort of light source. I think that like the way he's got her all in the frame, you can also see like, her abs, you can see her cape and stuff. Again, that's better composition. There's something about B. I don't mind the cape going outside of the border, but like, that seems just so weird that like he couldn't have drawn it just a little smaller so that like that little bit of the knee would also be in there. It just feels like that was like I don't know. It feels like an afterthought where he placed it.
That is, I do wonder. I know he does some digitizing here. I wonder if originally this was more zoomed out and he decided to zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, maybe he felt there was too much negative space the way he did it. But I would have like probably adjusted the pose. But look, I if he saw me saying this, he'd probably be like, "Well, who are you to complain?" But I'm just saying it as if we're comparing A and B. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I just find A a little more eye-catching. I also feel like she's got a little bit more of an expression in A.
Yes.
And in B, it's just a little more vacant. But A is sort of like, like, what do you want? But B is just like, hey.
Right. And I will say that one thing I've always kind of thought about, even though the styles don't really match, I think some of it might be the coloring on it, to be honest. It reminds me a little bit of Adam Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like the JSA Classified, that classic cover he did, like that kind
Absolutely.
of color tone and the shading. And the one on B here, she's a little bit more fully lit. The eyes for me on A are, they're obviously kind of going for a smoky look. It just pulls it off better to me. So that's kind of where I go with that one. Her torso might be a little too long on A. That's interesting.
I sort of understand, but I honestly think it's more a product of how massive her boobs are, because they're sort of covering up some of the upper torso. And I'm looking at it, and if I was to like sort of eliminate that and just find the shapes underneath, I think that the torso feels right to me. I think so, but it's an interesting opinion.
Yeah. So real fast, I'm gonna pull up a question to highlight, and we'll let people see the slides for the next one here and start do their voting, and we'll keep our opinions close to the vest here for a second. So here's the next one. And I think this one will be an interesting one for people that are into the character and into comic speculation, because there are reasons why each of these covers might be, ones that people might vote for. But I did want to ask this question. I think it's a great question. Why did you go Indiegogo over Kickstarter is the question from Comic Journey.
Good question. First of all, Dynamite is running the campaign, and they have more experience using Indiegogo as a platform. And I believe the logic is that I don't know. You know what? I shouldn't speak for them. All I know is they've used Indiegogo more. I believe that they just feel more comfortable with how you handle fulfillment through Indiegogo. I think that's really the only big thing.
Okay.
It could have been the other way, but I did the art and I'm doing the promotion. They're handling fulfillment. They've used Indiegogo, so that's all it is. That's all it is. It isn't like a preference with like, what kind of projects or anything are on one or the other.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, that's definitely more of a question for Dynamite on that one. But I will say I've used Indiegogo before. I backed the Jim Mint one we talked about earlier, and I backed the Amanda Connor one they did. And now I've backed this one. I've had good experiences with all three, with delivery and shipping and all that stuff. So I think they're a solid company as far as that goes. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of the votes here. A is more true to the comic. I believe I want to say it's actually a panel in the comic, if I'm not mistaken. So that makes sense. B is more like cosplay. Interesting. Okay. B, A, face faux show. B is more dynamic. B. Good evening to you as well. What do you think, Collector P? Which one gets your vote? B, A, I prefer that background. B for Venom. B, too much going on with A, where B is more concentrated on the character. That's interesting. So I want to, at this point, just in case people don't know, I will reveal this is interesting to me because this is almost like a speculation question, because A is a notorious Null cover. A lot of people place a premium on that cover for the character of Null. Of course, very famous for the Donny Cates run and a character who's kind of like one of those galactic level threats in the Marvel universe now, with maybe kind of a lackluster storyline in the ending department. But that cover was worth, I actually kind of associate that cover with the beginning of the comic boom of 2020, sort of. Like, it was a cover that just shot up. 9/8 CGCs were going for $1,200-$1,500 of that cover because it was a third printing, and it was a lot of people saying it's the first cover appearance, which is interesting because Venom 5, the Frankie's Comics exclusive, which is what I was on the B slide there, actually came out first. And also interesting is it's basically the same, idea, the same pose. It's obviously not the same in execution, of course, but that's why I think it's kind of the interesting dynamic here is, do collectors care about what came out first because they love that character or they want to invest in that character, whatever it might be, or do they care about the better art or what's more popular? And that's kind of the question I was kind of hoping to get to there. But I am curious, Chris, do you have a preference here on A or B?
I have a preference, but there are, in this particular case, I think, sincere pluses and minuses to each one.
Mm-hmm.
The expression on A is more interesting, but the pose and the angle is better in B. The straight-on shot of A isn't quite as dynamic, in my opinion, as just turning it a little for B.
Mm-hmm.
I also prefer the slightly more uncluttered background, but I find that environment in A very interesting at the same time. It's just I think it could do with a little less of it. Overall, I would probably lean towards B. But like I say, they each sort of have pluses and minuses. When I look at A, it looks a little bit more like a panel, like an establishing shot. B, to me, seems more like a cover where we're like sort of getting an introduction to a character. I don't know how to explain it too much better than that.
And I think you hit it right on the head for my thoughts on this too, because first of all, by the way, I forgot to mention the artist. Scan is the artist on the right, SKAN, who did the cover for Frankie's Comics on Venom 5 there. To me, there's just something about that style that, for a character like Null, No disrespect to Stegman, who did a fantastic job on
Yeah.
that run. Love the art, and I believe that is an interior panel that actually was used for that third printing. That's a kind of a common Marvel thing.
Oh, was it?
I'm pretty sure. Maybe somebody in chat can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm
That's
pretty
so
sure.
interesting.
And the best part about that, though, is for an interior, it makes a great cover. If I'm right about that. But B just has an atmosphere to it that is like more menacing to me. And I do kind of see what you're talking about, though, because you do have the that Marvel space kind of background there that does evoke a lot of memories for me. And maybe if B had some of that in the background, it would win hands down for me. But if this is a close one, and my vote does go for B.
Yeah, those are both interesting.
Yeah.
So you're saying the one we're seeing, A, was a reprint.
So yeah, A is the third printing of Venom 3.
Gotcha.
And 5 on the right there was the first print, but it was a store exclusive from Frankie's Comics. And that's just kind of weird. The timing, the Venom 3 third print came out after the Venom 5,
I get it.
which is,
but that would make sense now as you're explaining the history. I was reading that run. It's a couple years ago now, so I don't have a perfect memory either. That struck me as a panel, and you're saying you think it might have been too, because that's pretty sort of what it looks like.
Yeah, and yeah, again, in my memory, it's just long enough ago that I probably can't say that with as much confidence as I want, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the last panels I want to say in 3. It's been a while since I've read it too, but yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Frankie's dealing with some bankruptcy stuff right now. That's a good point. Unfortunately, I don't like to see any shop struggling. Oh wow, there you go. Yeah, I remember when that cover was going for hundreds on its own. So that's amazing. Good deal, buddy. All right, so real fast, I'm going to move on to the last competitor for the evening, the last panel here. Actually, sorry, next to last. And these are a pair of John Tyler Christopher covers. He does these negative space variants. And interestingly enough, these are both launching at the same time and on his page. He's doing like his own exclusive essentially. So we'll see what chat says about A versus B here. I think it's interesting because I won't say which one's which, but for me, it's interesting. I like one of these characters more, but I feel the other one is more technically well executed. That's what I'll say. Okay, votes are rolling in.
Yeah, I have a favorite between these two, but the idea is the same for both of them. It's really well executed in both cases.
Yeah, and I think he does. It's one of those things where he was certainly known for the action figure variants for a long time, and he did a fantastic job. To the point where a lot of people thought those were like photos of I mean, that you can't. That's an amazing compliment. Wow, by a landslide.
Yeah,
B seems too symmetrical. That's a great point. A is one of the best covers yet. Okay, so this is where I'll reveal my biases. We have a clear landslide here. Emma Frost is one of my favorite characters, especially since Joss Whedon's run on X-Men. I'm a huge Cyclops fan. Seeing her and Cyclops together, the dynamic there is really fun to me. Kind of notched her up to another level for me to see her go from Oliver past to where she went to Generation X and then eventually to the X-Men. And she's doing awesome stuff. She's probably the most fascinating character in the whole Krakoan era to me. But Psylocke is a character I love as well. But something about cover A, even though normally I'd be like, oh, White Queen, John Tyler, I'm all over that. For me, it's cover A on this one as well. How do you feel, Chris?
Yeah, I guess I'm in the minority on this one.
Okay.
I do think A is the better overall pose. There's a reason I would like B more. I think if you put both of those on the stand with all the other comics, that huge amount of white is going to stand out a little bit more against everything else compared to the very dark, cool colors there. I think B would pop on the newsstand a little bit more, which would just basically, like, I would argue, sell more copies potentially.
Yeah, that's a good point. the eye is definitely lazy, right? It's going to be drawn to that negative space, which is fun. It's kind of funny because these are
And
both
the color,
negative space
like
variants.
that white. You're not
Yes,
going to
yeah,
see a lot of colors of covers with a sort of a light, bright color like that.
that's a good point, Journey. I think for me, part of it might be the face on B. That was a great point. Who said that? It was too symmetrical. Mod Cult. Great comment there. I think that might be part of what sticks out to me. Although,
I love that you can see an X. I love that you
yeah,
can see sort of
yeah,
an X there, though.
that's cool. Good point.
A is the better pose. It's a little more dynamic and engaging. There's nothing bad about it. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that I think if you put them both on a newsstand with a bunch of other things, that possibly people might notice B faster.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good comparison. And then this is the final one, and this to me is kind of the heart of the issue that I wanted to get at with exclusive covers. So here we have two just amazing covers, right? For people that don't know, I'll tell you, I'm sure everybody knows the one on the right. That's obviously Star Wars 1 from the original run, the Marvel run.
Howard Chaykin.
Yeah, exactly. Classic cover. It's great too, just on how, obviously they were working off concept art and, things that, you had purple Yoda later in the run. You've got green Vader and Luke's red lightsaber, all these fantastic things that are going on there. For the people that don't know, the cover on the left is a Okazaki cover for Star Wars Visions #1. And this, we're talking about the exclusives. This was a store exclusive for the Comic Corner. It was limited to 800 copies. And it is still, I think, about $150 to $300 on any given day, which is why I chose this for a comparison, because you could get a copy of Star Wars in maybe a mid-grade condition for around that price for Star Wars 1. So this is one of those things where this is maybe kind of that long-term question. Which one do you think is more worth owning for the long term? Maybe more rare because a lot of copies of Star Wars 1 are out there. Do you have votes rolling in? A, B, A? White and red. Yeah, that's true. B, the style. Yeah, I mean, and there is, this ties into the Star Wars anime that they released as well. Feels too congested to me, if that makes sense. Okay, interesting, K-Bar. A, B, B is my youth. I can feel that. A, B, B is the book to have. A is compelling. Okay. And then B. So yeah, very, very divided on this one. Chris, how do you feel?
Well, if you're going for value, if it said 35 cents on that Star Wars, that's the one I'd go for.
100%. I've very carefully made sure not to choose a 35
cent is the rare sort of variance between them.
Yes.
No, I would still choose B. I would still choose B. I like the artwork in A, but I do feel like that big face that takes up the second, the top half, I should say, of the cover disappears.
Yes.
I don't make it out easily when I'm glancing at a cover, and a cover needs to be like something you can like really digest fast. B, I digest really, really fast. It's still dynamic. Yeah, there's a lot to like about. I'd go with B. I don't dislike the artwork in A, but I'd definitely choose B.
Interesting. Yeah, and I will say this is one of those interesting ones where the trade dress for the standard cover for Visions, it was kind of a dark blue with some purple mixed into it, I believe. Up at the top of the cover would have filled in some of that space. And this is where you get the interesting kind of thing where I think as comic collectors, a lot of people gravitate towards virgin covers, especially when they're thinking about value. But a lot of times that trade dress sort of almost needs to be there to complete the look of the cover. Not always, of course, but sometimes that is something that's worth pointing out. Nostalgia always wins out. That's a great point. And yeah, nostalgia is a hell of a drug for sure. For me, it's B hands down. Although I think that A is something fresh. It's, there's so many Star Wars comics out there. There's so many covers and keys and all these different things that people look for. So I think it's cool to see that style brought so well into Star Wars. And that's a great point that Chris brought up too, because if it was just that bottom figure kind of maybe more enlarged on that cover and more the focus, I'm really intrigued by the way that looks. And then even the red glow from the saber on the black and white is really cool. Draws the eye. So if Kurosawa did Star Wars, it would have been the poster in theaters. That's a good point. That's a great point. Yeah, so that was a fun little experiment. Thanks everybody for playing along on that one. Just something that I think was kind of this interesting topic. If you guys have future suggestions, we could do this again in the future. Maybe we just do one a week or something like that from now on. Let me know about exclusives you're interested in seeing matched up to other books, and we could discuss it on future shows. So, Chris, are you still doing okay on time? I want to be mindful of what you have going on.
Absolutely.
Okay, sweet. And since we are going to move into another topic, I will take the second to point out that there are links in the description down below for Chris and ComicTropes. Make sure you follow those and follow him. Definitely a creator I think is worth doing that for 100%. I know I have I was mentioning the Barry Windsor Smith video that you did. I have that queued up to watch later tonight. I'm excited for checking that one out.
Cool. I hope you get something out of it.
Yeah, it's funny. I just picked up his first cover like last week. So was it X-Men 53? I can't remember.
X-Men 53?
Yeah. It's 53 or 55.
Yeah, that was his first. That was his first cover work for sure.
Yeah. So just grab that. It's kind of a low grade copy, but I'm a big, like I mentioned, I'm a big X-Men fan, so had to go for that. And I love Weapon X and obviously all that, of course. Great artist. So
that's cool.
All right, folks, we're going to move into the news segment before we wrap up the stream. We do have a couple interesting bits of news that came out. The first one I want to talk about is Steven Yeun has been cast as a character to join the MCU, and he will be coming in the Thunderbolts film, which is very interesting. I think the immediate thing that happened after this news broke was the speculation about who will he play, and there's a lot of interesting options that could be. I decided to share this Screen Rant article. Of course, love to give credit to the original authors of the article. So make sure you go check that out if you want to read this article in full later. But yeah, we have Steven Yeun cast in Thunderbolts, and there's sort of the suggestion in the series that he'll become sort of the fifth Captain America in the current MCU, which is interesting way to put that. But I definitely want to talk about some of the potentials for who he could be playing. The front runners seem to be because we know that Sentry has been attached to Thunderbolts previously.
Probably the antagonist, but might not be necessarily a full bad guy. But yeah, I've heard that rumor.
Yeah, and that would be very interesting, especially.
Could work.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just said could work.
Oh yeah, could work. Yeah.
Like, aren't there enough Captain Americas already in this movie?
Yeah, I think that's maybe used in sneer quotes, just kind of as somebody to maybe take that mantle. Maybe is kind of what they're saying. Maybe not the actual shield itself, but I don't know where it fit, because I would say third, maybe, like if you count Bucky or not, who's obviously going to be the leader of the Thunderbolts, as we've learned. This is interesting. I don't know about the wording there. I don't know exactly where that came from. The other theory I've seen is this one, which is Amadeus Cho, who of course makes sense in some ways. He's a South Korean character in the comics, and Steven
not the right age, I don't think. I don't think that they would cast somebody Steven's age for Amadeus Cho.
That's a really great point, and I have questions about whether or not, obviously Amadeus Cho becomes later known as Brawn. Goes through several different names. I have questions about whether or not they'd even want to introduce another Hulk character at this point.
Got three.
Yeah, three, and with the Thunderbolt Ross kind of red Hulk.
That could be four.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess in some respects you could maybe say that's more of a reason for them to go that route, to kind of have this Hulk mini universe maybe, but it seems like a lot to do.
We know oh wait, this is Thunderbolts. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, in Captain America, we know the villain is the leader. So if he was showing up in Captain America, I'd go, well, maybe he is Amadeus Cho to go up against the leader. Maybe, something small. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense though. I think that they'd want to get somebody younger for Amadeus Cho.
And then this is the part, and I apologize if I pronounce this incorrectly. I've only ever seen it in print, but Taguchi is the new character that
Taguchi.
appeared. What is it?
Taguchi.
Taguchi? Okay. This is kind of a newer character that's popped up and is going to be part of Tiger Division, or is part of Tiger Division, and that is also an interesting theory. The other person I've seen attached, and I don't know why they would do this, but I've seen people speculating online. I've seen some people say Iron Fist. I don't think they're going to go that route, but
No.
it's another one I've seen thrown out there that wasn't mentioned in the article. This kind of stuff is fun though, right? Like speculating about who's going to be what in the movie. At the end of the day, my take on it is I'm happy Steven Yeun's coming to the MCU. I think he's a fantastic actor.
He's great.
Yeah, and I do think that as much as the Sentry casting is kind of out of left field to me, but that would be kind of fun to see him play this, duality of Robert Reynolds and the Void and all that. That'd be pretty cool. So I'm pretty excited no matter which way this goes, but obviously fairly big news. Great to get.
I figured it out, Bronze.
Okay.
I figured it out.
We have breaking news.
He's been in the Marvel comics. He already plays this character. He's Invincible. Invincible is coming to the MCU.
That would be awesome. I really, really want the MCU to get to a point where we could do where they could do like a crossover like that, or like a DC crossover. That would be amazing.
It'd be a blast.
So fun.
There's so many people that would have to be involved to make it work. I think Sentry makes a little bit of sense. I do.
That's a good point, Kim Dog. Claudia Kim was Helen Cho, who was in Avengers. Yes, that is a great point. There is definitely...
If we use that logic, Amadeus Cho technically has been in the MCU, although they've retconned that.
Oh, yeah.
Does anybody even remember?
Well, I remember that. I don't remember.
Martin Starr played supposedly was Amadeus Cho in that Hulk movie.
No way.
He was just a college student that got a pizza, but people were saying that he was Amadeus Cho. I don't remember why.
That is interesting. I wonder if he was just told that on set, maybe this.
But obviously now he plays like Peter Parker's high school teacher. So
right, and I love him in that role. He does a great job.
Yeah. I like Terry Floyd's guest. Terry Floyd, highlight that one. Yep.
Oh, super.
Yep. There you go. Bronze, you wanted this. You just said you were hoping for the day when the MCU could start crossing over with other properties. Well, here's your first one. Congratulations. Confirmed on this show. It's your first exclusive. Yep, the NFL and MCU have teamed up, NFL Super Pro, and they've decided that the perfect person to play a retired quarterback is none other than Steven Yeun.
I really hope it's just him in a cameo series of PSAs about concussions. I hope that's what the tack they take.
That would be good. Chem Dog has a good idea there. Maybe Fixer, maybe not, but we do need a few more villains.
Yeah. Yep.
Forget race. Maybe Sentry. Maybe he's just somebody like Fixer or Goliath or Beetle, or just a famous Thunderbolt villain on the team that we just haven't been told about. Maybe it's a plot point, so they didn't want to announce it. I'm just speculating.
That would be fascinating.
Could easily just be a villain on the team that they want to do something with. I mean, the whole point of Thunderbolts was redemption arcs.
Yeah.
So maybe they'd want to keep him Beetle had a fantastic Mach 1 in Thunderbolts. He had one of the best stories.
One, and that's funny that to take it back to the original Thunderbolts comic, because that's one thing that maybe is kind of I don't want to say disappointing because the movie hasn't come out yet. I could love it, but it does seem like we're getting probably a much different version of the Thunderbolts than happened in the comic, which I think is unfortunate to some extent, because
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
We're not really getting the Thunderbolts twist.
Right, the twist, which I mean, hardcore fans would probably see coming as soon as you could use different characters too, though maybe.
Exactly. Like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
That twist is the thing to remember though is that twist wasn't like what they built up to. They gave us that right away, and that was the jumping on point for the Thunderbolts. The idea was villains pretending to be heroes, and most of them starting to like it. That idea of you are what you pretend to be.
Yeah.
That was a great premise. A great premise. And it made it more unique. I wish maybe there's still a way we can get some of that. I hope so.
That would be amazing. I feel like with what they've set up with Julia Louis-Dreyfus character and kind of where we're going, I could see there being elements of the original Thunderbolts twist. Maybe some of these characters are double agents, or they're that kind of a thing. I mean, we probably will get some hearkening to that, but it almost feels like we're going for in a way almost more of a Dark Avengers than a Thunderbolts, or kind of a mashup of those two ideas maybe.
I know. But I want Zemo to be running things.
Right?
And then the others going like, wait a minute, Zemo's a jerk. I don't want to follow along with Zemo.
Well, and that's what I remember watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and it wasn't my favorite show. It was enjoyable. It was a fun watch. Yeah. But his character, like thinking about, man, if they go Thunderbolts with where they're going with all this, that could be extremely entertaining with this version of Zemo.
They've got some great actors. Some of the fun of Thunderbolts is having more hardcore villains and getting to know them as people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the best villains are always people that have either they're complicated characters or relatable characters, or they have a interesting motive and they just have the wrong methods to attain those goals. Yeah. So I think that's definitely something I'd love to see more of. And I guess we're just gonna have to wait to see what it turns out. Like I have faith that they'll come out.
I hope it surprises us. I hope it surprises us.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just based on time and where we're at. I'm gonna bring this up as kind of the last story I want to talk about, and this was some news I was excited to see today. So let's talk about Battle Chasers finally coming back, right? Like we've all been waiting for the last, and I say that tongue in cheek. I actually was a big fan of Battle Chasers for its short-lived run. Oh, yeah. Joe Madureira did a fantastic job, and I can't wait to see more of this story. I know there's been some teases throughout the last few years that there might be a chance that we're coming back to get more Battle Chasers, but it's official. So the 10th issue, originally due in November 2001, is coming this summer. And I do want to give credit. This is the Gizmodo article by James Whitbrook. So definitely go check that out. And yeah, 2 decades later, we're getting Joe Madureira's arcane punk adventure series, known for its languid release pacing, to finally come to an end for the cliffhanger fans never got the conclusion of. This is exciting. Were you a Battle Chaser? Did you read the story back in the day?
Oh, at the time, I was a massive fan of Joe Madureira. My tastes have definitely changed some, but he's got very, very fun art. We hadn't seen in American comics something quite this sort of Capcom style. We'd seen manga-inspired stuff, but Joe Madureira definitely took it to another level. I was reading Battle Chasers. It was hard to follow because it came out very, very slowly. I don't remember exactly, but I feel like 9 issues over like 4 or 5 years. It was very slow. It was very slow. So I don't remember most of it.
Yep. And that's kind of my memory, very disjointed memory of it. I got Xbox Game Pass and I was playing the RPG that came out, Night War, kind of during the whole COVID thing. Because that was a nice game I could play in front of I have a 4-year-old daughter, so she was about 2 or 3 when I first started playing it, and that was a nice game I could play kind of when she was around. It wasn't over the top violent, it's all turn based. I could stop and tend to her needs as they came up and everything. So it was a fun game to play, and yeah, I actually kind of remember being like, this is such a great story. Like, why did it not go anywhere else? With other kind of adaptations, and now it looks like we're finally going to get a conclusion, which I'm excited about. Maybe it's just nostalgia, maybe it's silliness. I'm excited because I get to go reread Battle Chasers now gives me a good excuse to go reread it and get excited for.
I'm sure they'll be re-releasing a trade, right? I didn't read the full article, but I'm sure that
I would think that this is maybe you could even argue that the whole reason they're doing this is to re-release a trade. But
yeah. Well, the one thing I did see was that he's not doing all the art.
Right.
This Ludo Lullaby, which I have to imagine is pen name. I have to,
yeah.
But is going to do the art. Maybe he'll do covers or something, and that's fine. That's fine. Hey, if you want to see the story, this is the only way you're going to get it, folks.
Right. And it is one of those things where it's I have an affinity for those stories that never finished, that we never got to see the conclusion of, or that they had that weird release schedule. Actually, I'm pretty sure you covered like All-Star Batman and Robin, right?
Sure.
There's another one. Yeah.
Sure. I would have loved to have seen that finished. Do you have a favorite unfinished comic? Because I definitely have one.
Well, actually, the funny thing is, it's actually Battle Chasers. That is the one for me.
Okay. Lucky you.
yeah. So when I say I'm excited, I'm like, it's funny, but I'm also excited about it.
Yeah.
Did you have one that came to mind too that you were thinking of?
Yeah, it'll never happen, but Big Numbers.
Big Numbers
by Alan Moore and Bill Sienkiewicz.
Sure.
Brilliant idea, just utterly unique. It was just going to tell the history of a small England town that had a mall put in and how that changed the culture and the history. And but it was gorgeous, just like some of the most breathtakingly realistically rendered stuff by Sienkiewicz, who I always think is a master, but I guess it just was taking him too long, so he stepped away. Had like 2 issues drawn by his like one of his proteges, but like the protege actually destroyed the second of the 2 before publishing it. It's a fascinating story. And now Alan Moore, of course, has stepped away from comics, and I really don't think he'd come back for any reason.
Right.
Yeah, Big Numbers.
That makes sense.
That's the unfinished comic I would have loved to have seen finished.
Wow. Well, that's a good one. I'm actually going to have to check that out because I mean, I'm a huge Sienkiewicz fan. Alan Moore. I mean, you just there's so much stuff going on there that
it's an interesting story. Maybe I should make an episode about that. I don't know.
Ooh, yeah, that would be good. I'm pretty much going to say yes to anything that involves you making an episode of anything. So sure. You find some of the most interesting topics to cover, I find. So 100%, that would be something I'm sure a lot of people would love to see.
How much of an impact do you think this will have with A, coming out 20 years later, and B, not all Joe Madureira art? Like, how much of an impact do you think that is? I mean, like, that's just a completely different project, isn't it, in a way? Or it's like it's a different comics environment.
Him not doing the art to me is oddly like a bigger deal than the break, I feel like, because if it was announced that he's doing all the interior art, I think every fan just jumps to oh my gosh, well I gotta see this now.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of the unfortunate thing. I don't know for him, I'm not sure if it was the time commitment, because I know he's a very busy person for some of the other work he does. I believe in video games, if I'm not mistaken.
I know that's what he's passionate about. If he's still working in games, I have to admit I don't know what he does in video games.
And I also know that some artists just don't feel up to the workload. Of course, that could also be the reason why. But for whatever the reason, Kevin Smith's Bullseye, yeah.
I don't need that.
Then there was the infamous Spider-Man Black Cat that took forever to come out too.
He did finish that one?
He did finish it. Yeah, he did finish it, which is
great.
Incredible. I never thought that was going to happen. But yeah. Okay, so so besides that, I can't think of any others that jump to mind. But I love seeing that, because it's like one of those things where as a collector, I love to close the loop on something. It's like I always want to see the end of the story if it's worth finishing, and I think there's some more story to tell there, so that should be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't even get it was coming out on a theoretical monthly schedule in the monthly format. We didn't get a full year of it, so there's definitely more story to tell.
Right. Exactly. Sorry, I'm preparing something in the background here. Before we go, I definitely want to take one last quick share just to show everybody what's going on over at Indiegogo, and I just want to make sure we take that extra opportunity to talk about this. This is ComicTropes cover. It's a fantastic mix of different comic tropes, which is perfect for what he has done on his channel. And I'll kind of show that off. That's kind of the hero image right there, where you get to see all the different art. And he was talking about the black and white there. You can see that really pop there. That might be a good choice if you want just Chris's art, but I think it's fantastic all the way around.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate
so
the plug. That's nice of you.
Of course. And the link is in the description below. It's pinned to the chat. Go check it out if you want to consider contributing. We would love to. I would love to support this. In fact, I did. So I think that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then I'm going to do one more thing, and then I'll let you, get a chance to plug anything else you need to plug. I need to
plug my food hole with food.
Okay. Well, we should be wrapped up in less than 5 minutes. In fact, maybe
I'm kidding around. Yeah.
Well, but at the same time, I do want to be respectful because we are getting close to the 1.5 hour mark, which is kind of what I had in mind for this show. Here we go. So I do have to do a little giveaway real fast for my channel members. So if you are a member of the Bronze Age Nerd channel, every month I give away some comic books. And if you're at the $10 a month level, you get a chance to win a special bonus prize.
Wow.
So I got some comics that were sent in as part of a video you'll see coming up on my channel soon from X11 Bravo. X11 Bravo is a fantastic page and group that works with veterans in the comic book community. I work really closely with them. It's a group of veterans that run that particular page. Go check out X11 Bravo on Instagram. And they basically send care packages to veterans in the community where they find out from family members what matters to them. They send letters to support those veterans. And they take a custom comic book. They get a custom label from the EGS grading service and a custom slab stamp so they can display that comic book. And a whole care package gets sent to them. It's called Project Slabavet. It's a great cause. And they decided that I helped them out so much they wanted to send me a care package, which was totally unnecessary. And I feel super just gratitude towards everything that they did. So I want to give back a little bit of what they sent me. So a couple of these comic books they sent me, I'm going to go ahead and pay that forward to the community. Got a great classic Batman Christmas style cover, Batman 309. It's a gorgeous book. I think that should go to somebody in the community. I kind of made this a DC themed giveaway. So I have Batgirl 25 that came from them. That's another great one that'll go out. And then just kind of this is a little bit more random, but it's a little bit older book, a 35 center. So I think people might appreciate this. This was Witching Hour 72. That should be a fun read. There you go. That's and so then cool. This is, kind of a modern, key comic, I guess, if you're into that. Batman Detective Comics 1039. That's I believe the first appearance of Vile. So that's from the newer run there. You can check that out. And I will say, if one of my $10 a month Bronze Age heroes wins, they will win a EGS Black Adam #1 9.8 slab. So if you happen to be at the $10 a month level and you're the random winner I draw, you win that book and they all get sent to you. If you're the winner, please contact me with your shipping information so I can get the books packed up and sent off to you as soon as possible. So, all right, we're going to bring up the random list generator here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit randomize 3 times on this list. And the number that appears at the top of the list on that third roll will be our winner. So there's the first time, the second time, and the third time. Good luck to everybody who is a channel member. If you guys do want to join and be part of this, please consider hitting that join button. It does help support the channel. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm doing my stream where we get to watch Fantastic Four, the Roger Corman version from 1990. We're going to do that tomorrow on my Discord. You guys can watch along. I'll be watching it for the first time. That's another perk of being a channel member. All right, here's that third roll. Congratulations to the winner, which is Collector P, who was in the chat earlier. Collector P, are you still here? I think you were here. So that's awesome.
So what does Collector P get?
So Collector P is not a $10 a month channel member, so he wins all 4 comic books. I'll remove that so you guys can see a little bit better.
Respect.
All 4 comic books, and plus, I've been known to throw in some extra goodies from time to time, pretty much every time. So I'm sure there'll be some nice extras in there. Yeah, it should have been. Yeah, that's a good point. I actually should have dug up some Vampirella. Maybe we'll do some Vampirella soon here. He might have bowed out, but yeah, Collector P, great channel supporter. Thanks a lot for all the support, everybody that's a channel member. And to those that didn't win, better luck next month. Okay, Chris, well, we are going to let you go here very soon. So I just wanted to give you that chance. I know there's a couple things you have coming up. What would you like to plug? What do you have coming up, sir?
Oh boy. Well, you've been kind enough to plug that Indiegogo a bunch, and you said that the link is in the description if people are curious, like watching this later. Thank you so much. I've got 2 YouTube channels, just to be clear.
Right.
Like sorry. Didn't mean to offend the British viewers. ComicTropes. I aim for like weekly edited video analysis of comic book either history or more often like techniques by writers, artists, stuff like that. And then I also have a live show, and I do that on a second channel that's called Pros and Cons, and I do that on Monday nights. So that's fun, where I talk about the comic book news, give some mini reviews. It's usually about a 2.5 hour show.
Awesome. Yeah, it's also worth checking out too. And then you have that stream coming up on Thursday, right? That's the
on Thursday. I'm going to do a live stream on my main channel, ComicTropes. So a lot of people should be able to see that, and I'll give away some stuff.
I agree.
Thank you, Comic Journey. That's so nice of you.
Yeah, and really, just the last thing is I just want to take 1 second to thank you for not only being willing to come on here. That's extremely generous of your time, and I know you have something to plug, which is great too. Hopefully we can help you out with that too. But just being able to come on, it's a real treat for me. As I mentioned, you've been a big inspiration for why I started this channel and doing what I do. And not only that, I just enjoy going on and watching your content. And I just want to say thank you for all the wonderful content you deliver to the community and all that knowledge that you drop and getting people more curious about comics. That is my favorite thing, is getting people more interested and more excited about comic books.
Same.
If learning the history helps them discover some comic books they didn't know about before, that just helps everybody. So
thank you. Yeah, I love talking about it and sharing it, and hopefully introducing either something new that somebody hasn't read before, or maybe at least giving them a little bit of a different way of looking at something that they've already looked at. Like, I hope so. But thank you so much. That's really appreciated.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful night. Again, Chris, thanks for joining us for the show, and we'll catch you all on the next one. And I'll see everybody tomorrow night for the movie watch along for Fantastic Four. Can't wait. Have a good night, everybody.